So the title of our final session today is Collaboration and What Happens Next. And I don't mean what happens next by going to the Albion pub, although that is going to happen after this. Right, so we've had a lot of comments today, and a lot of opinions. Now, on our last session, we're going to look at where we go. We've had a lot of talk about collaboration, what needs to happen next. So we've got a panel. I'd like to introduce the panel. So on my left, we've got Paul Hyde, Operations Director of techUK. Next to him, we've got Stuart Tickle, Managing Director of AWE. And then we've got Dan Todaro, Managing Director of Field Marketing Agency Gecko. And we've got Saycell, Chief Executive of Retra. Now, I'm just going to ask you, for those of you who don't know everyone and your businesses, a little bit about what you do. So, Paul, you've kindly led us to event today, and you've been a co-organiser of the conference. Just explain to people in a nutshell what techUK does, please.
So techUK is a trade association. It's a not-for-profit entity, and it's there to represent commercial industry. I mean, we are funded 90% by commercial members paying their membership fee, and we're here to represent the industries we support. But we're broad tech, so consumer electronics is maybe 10% of what we do. We do everything in tech, from defence tech, from financial tech to health tech. But part of our role is to help bring the diverse areas of industry together to create opportunity, to repel unwanted regulation or compliance, and to give people an insight in the markets that may exist and how you take advantage of them.
Great, thanks, Paul. Stuart, can you tell a little bit about AWE and what you guys do?
Sure, I'm Stuart Tickle, Managing Director of AWE. We're a smart home distribution and training company. We are a for-profit entity. And
that makes two of us, yeah.
Hopefully we can help you be more profitable as well. So we're for profit for everyone. But we've been around 80 years. I haven't been Managing Director for all of that. That's about the last 12. Started off as a Radio Menders Limited. And the company's evolved quite a bit since then. We've really gone through substantial growth the past sort of decade or so, off the back of the growth of what's more traditionally called the custom install industry, which is where we focused our efforts and is now becoming more relevant to everybody in this room.
Great, thanks, Stuart. And Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself and what Gecko does.
Gecko is a field marketing agency. We work exclusively within the consumer electronics and tech sector. So we represent brands and support them with their customer journey into retail. Ultimately, what we want to do is to convert that customer into somebody who buys that brand's product. So we actively look at the ways in which we develop and enhance that customer journey and that experience, whether it be through the touch point online, for whether they see what they see above the line, whether it be through TV, billboards, off the page advertising, and actually then how we deliver that message on the shop floor and convert them into customers. So we proactively work with the brand to support the channel and the retailer, but we don't work directly with the retailer.
Great. And Howard, a little bit about yourself and Retra.
Okay, I've been Retra CEO for about 18 months. Been with Retra for just under 5 years. Prior to that, I spent quite a long time with Sony. Some of my ex-colleagues are dotted around the room. Retra has been around since 1942. Very much set up and focused on the electrical retail industry, along with service members and associate members, but our main reason in life is to support our membership, help our membership navigate the choppy waters of the electronics industry, provide them with services and special rates on things like finance and credit card acquirers and things of that nature.
Okay. There's a lot to talk about. We're kind of almost summing up, really, and we wanted to end on a positive note as well. So we heard a lot today about the role of the independent retailer. As someone who represents Howard, the Independent Electrical Retail Association, what do you kind of see as the role of the independent retailer now and going forward, and commenting on some of the things that you've heard people talk about today?
Well, firstly I'd like to congratulate yourself and obviously Patrick, Andy and the team. I think it's been a very, very interesting day.
Thank you.
I would say that, if you'd been walked in off the street and joined this meeting today and heard at the start that we're all concerned about the future of the independent and that, we're very worried about whether the independent is actually going to survive, having listened to today, you'd say, well, actually, what's the problem? Well, the problem is 9% share.
Yeah.
And I think we saw 6, 7 retailers today, fabulous stores, understand what they're doing, have a clear direction, are motivated, work very well with their brands, have got a superb direction, lovely showrooms. And the reality is that, the vast majority of independent retailers aren't like that. That's the honest truth. What you've seen today is best in class. What's out there is not like that, or the vast majority of it's not like that. There were some honest numbers from the manufacturers earlier in terms of the independent share of their business. And I'll give you an honest number from Retra. In 2009, Retra had 1,400 members, and as of today we have less than 800. That's the reality, and that's why what we've talked about today is great, but what we've got to do is replicate that, take that out into the wider industry, take that out to the non-believers, take that out to the people the kind of people that I talk to on a regular basis, sadly, that say, I'm not sure if I can continue in the industry because I can't make a living, and then I interrogate them and ask them what they're doing and what is their, what's their customer engagement about? Are they on the basic question? Are you on the internet? Do you do social media? Do you do this? Do you do that? And there's so many of them out there that need our help. And I talk about our help collectively as an industry.
We talked about collaboration is obviously one of the themes of this session as well. So what needs to change to be able to do that? We heard people today, if you come to these conferences, there seems there's like a massive role for Retra to play. Everyone says Retra should do this, Retra should do that, which obviously puts pressure on you as an organisation.
Retra's very ready to do that.
Yeah.
I won't steal your thunder, but yeah, we obviously focus dramatically on the opportunity, as Seb James calls it, the £1 billion opportunity at our conference back in October. We are later this month, our first introduction seminar to the smart home takes place at AW's offices in Epsom. That's oversubscribed, so we're going to run a second session.
Okay.
But again, to a degree, we're scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I think Roy mentioned earlier, could Retra play a role perhaps in bringing together parts of the industry that might want to invest in the independent, and could we coordinate that? And the answer is yes, we can do that. We can coordinate collective marketing opportunities. We've got links with businesses that are already looking at that for us. We've got our award-winning online training, which again, when you're of the scale that the guys that have sat up here are, it's great to engage with your own training suites, with your own training business and all the rest of it. But the reality is our 700-800 members, the vast majority of them can't do that. So we have to provide them with something that is on a lower scale, but not necessarily not as good. It needs to, we want perhaps to have qualifications, accreditation for their staff, all those sorts of good things. So yes, Retra's very happy to get involved, and I do believe strongly that we need an industry approach, and quite frankly, we've got to identify the people that can survive first and foremost, and then come up with the plan that helps them to do that. Just touching, I will share with you, I said to Sean on one of the breaks, I think it's been such a good day and there's been so much positive stuff. At the Retra conference in October later this year, we are going to actually devote a whole session to Turning Point, Progress, Update, and we'll work with Sean and the team on how we deliver that.
Thanks, Howard. You touched on the AWE training, Stuart. So smart home training, and when we spoke at the Retra conference, and you were on the panel as well, there was this identified this kind of need for, well, first of all, basic Wi-Fi router, or router as they call it in America, training, Wi-Fi training, which is the basics of smart home. There was a need for a kind of industry, a call for the industry to get some smart home training. You've teamed up with Retra, you're doing this, and you're involved with T21, a training company who do work for Retra and work with Retra, and also done some work with us. What's brought about that? How's that going? Howard said it's oversubscribed. But that's a good thing, isn't it? Because sometimes you do these things and you kind of think we're preaching to the converted, and people are a bit scared to come along. Can you tell us a bit about that and how you see the opportunity for smart home going forward for indies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic thing. Beautiful thing. No, it's interesting actually. Turning point is a good phrase. So if for those of you that remember, it's probably about 5-6+ years ago, the AWE as a business recognised that retail felt it really needed to change. Things were starting to get a little bit stale, and we put ourselves out there. We contacted a whole load of customers, a whole load of retailers, some of which are very proactively, being here with Hughes, and others that have been sort of up on stage today, Eventis and so on. And the big change is at that time we actually went along to a buying group trade show, for example, and we visited lots of people, some in this room now, and actually it was a very negative reaction, and we didn't give up. We kept pursuing, but essentially, talking about staff being hard to convince, I have to say, it starts with the owners, and it's been a long time to get to this point. Now, that isn't supposed to be a kick in the teeth or a dig. I'm trying to give you the perspective as to where we are now and why this is so relevant. And the Retra conference was the first time which we went to, because it was also probably about 3 or 4 years prior to that. Not a lot happened, but I think the turning point has come. I think we've probably turned that corner, and everyone in this room is most likely on that path now. They've taken that crossroads. It'll be pretty foolhardy to walk away from here and not do anything. And I think there's very few people that would probably feel that way. So that really was the Retra conference, which we were speaking to Howard, obviously, who's only 18 months in. But I remember Retra install didn't happen because there wasn't the demand from the membership at that time. But clearly, there's a shift in mindset for those retailers that are still here. People have spoken about maybe it's a smaller number, higher quality. So first of all, congratulations for still being here. The fact you're in the room means you're probably the most forward-thinking of those who are still around as well. The specific conference, it's available to look at, but really we've targeted this first day. We spoke at length, and with T21, Paul Leville training as well. We identified that it was the proprietors that need to lead their business and make those decisions. And we've had probably 1,500 business owners through our showroom that we set up a couple of years ago, and training facility. I would say there's probably been about 25 retailers, if I take away the specific brand launch events that we've held with some of our brands.
Great. We heard a lot about marketing today, digital marketing. We've heard about always-on marketing. We've heard about food festivals. We've heard about the customer journey. Daniel, you run a marketing company, field marketing agency. What kind of needs to change? Do you see maybe from a retail point of view? Are retailers getting independents as you see? Are they getting better at marketing? They still need a lot more helping hand.
Everyone's getting better at it. There's no shadow of doubt there. But I think the problem is that the independent sector are relying too much on the brands, and the brands are relying too much on the independent sector, and they have to work together. There's nothing worse than seeing an independent align themselves too heavily with one particular brand, because the problem there is that you become very brand centric in that you're not opening yourself up to a wider customer base. And one of the key things that we looked at, or that was discussed today, was the overhead involved in running a store. Yes, it's high, but then if you apportion where you get the best return, and I suppose what we do very well is that we look at what the models that we put in place, but we measure them against sales data. So we look at the change, the effect, the cause and effect. So when we talk about the smart home, and we go into the channel and we worked with a brand on their smart home technology for thermostats and lighting, we saw through the training model that we delivered in independence and in the multiple sector, we saw a 31% increase in sales purely through that education process. And I think once you can measure and understand what works well, you can apply that across every category within your store. When we look at categories, I think there is a need as well for bodies like Retra to perhaps look at the generic side and how they can help more in the category management. So, you can't expect a brand to support you on your online omni-channel experience. You can't expect that brand to support you within a category, because they're, one brand in a category of different brands that you offer within your store. Where bodies come into play, and people like Retra, I think it's really important that they help these retailers, independents who don't necessarily have that commercial acumen or that savvy. As you said, today was best in class that we've seen. Not everybody is like that. Not everyone is that way inclined in how they develop their store and their staff. Where we can help them with that generic part, I think, is that bridging gap that brings both brand and retailer together, and everyone succeeds. It's important. We're seeing the multiple retail estate decrease. in size. Independents are becoming increasingly more important to the to technology brands, because it really is a facilitator to range more of their products, and perhaps as well be a little bit more creative in the way in which they go to market.
We had a lot about the customer journey. It's quite an overused phrase. Asked some of your reviews in advance of the conference. You said create a journey for customers which is in tune with the zeitgeist, which all sounds very impressive. What does that actually mean?
We look at what's happening at the moment with Alexa, with Echo, and what's going to happen with Google and Google Home. That's massive. That's going to be absolutely huge out there. And we need to tap into that. If you look at total streaming at the moment of music, 52% of that is done between the age groups of 16 and 22. That's massive. That's over 50% of everything that's streamed is done within a very, very niche window. Okay, and it's how do we talk to that audience that are going to continue streaming, because, as was pointed out earlier, you're not going to build a business on selling turntables again, because it's still very small. They are going to continue streaming. Those people, that group, if you like, are going to start earning money, and they're going to start spending money, and it's important to them that when they go into a store like yours, that they can actually buy the products that relate to them, that enables them to be able to do that thing of streaming, whether it be in the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, wherever it may be. And it's, again, that's what I mean about the zeitgeist. And again, when we look at Retra and so on, it's how we tap into that zeitgeist and communicate that. It's looking at the global trends. The smart home, I think Gartner said, is going to be something like a $35 billion industry by 2020. That's only 3 years away. It's huge. We want to be part of that. The independent sector wants to be part of that.
A lot of independents missed out on selling smartphones, for some reason. Obviously, there was contracts involved, but they missed out on IT, some of them. A lot of them. Do you worry that a lot of them are going to miss out on the smart home? Maybe I'll ask that, Paul. Someone who's worked for manufacturers and now works for an agency. Do you think that's an opportunity? Is it worth going after that sector?
Well, you can't ignore it, because it's going to be an increasingly relevant part of the sector. I think the challenge is how you address it. I mean, one of my overall observations, and having had a lot of experience in this sector, and now through techUK having had experience in other sectors of tech, is as an industry we're far more fragmented. So what I really see in other industry sectors, whether that's defence, whether it's health, whether it's financial services, is in those common areas, common issues, those industries are far better across the full supply chain at coming together to grow that pie, which, once the pie is there, exists, they will then step away and pursue their respective competitive strategies. I think, one of the challenges this industry faces is we're still pretty fragmented. And there are voices within the industry, but it's not so cohesive, and we're losing an opportunity because, my argument would be, as an industry, we come together to grow the pie, and then individually you go away and you fight for your share of that pie. But if that pie is small, unless you're taking a massive share, and there's not many people in this industry, whether you're talking channel or product, that can deliver that, you're going to be small. I mean, some of the examples are, to take the smart home example, we still don't really have a common and cohesive platform on which people can sell on. Actually, has this industry really come together to try and resolve that, argue the case, get agreement, and get a platform which people can build on? No. Digital radio, we haven't really come together fully of an industry to get the government over the line of switching, which will probably 2 times, 3 times grow that radio market. UHD TV, there's different logos, there's different standards. And these are all examples where the opportunity is not being maximised, and I see better examples of cohesion in other industries. So I think that's one of our challenges. Trade associations have a role to play in that, and I think most people here will be a member of either a manufacturer or retail trade association. But I would urge people, if we believe in this industry and want to be part of it, there's a benefit to you all of having a bigger pie, and therefore we have a role to play to be advocates, to be evangelists, and try and reach out. The faces I see in this room, we see at all the conferences. It's best in class. It's those people that are passionate about the industry, but we have a job to do, that reaching out to some of those that are not. I mean, there will be casualties. It's inevitable. All industries change. People drop out, but what we need is a critical mass. It's not about quantity, it's about quality, but you need some critical mass of quantity on which to build your base. And And I guess our challenge is, I think we know where we need to focus. It's how as an industry we can come together and how we can amplify that collective voice. I think does make a difference. We see it making a difference in other industries where they have a clear, cohesive line on an issue. I mean, I see BT, Virgin and Sky all in a room arguing about things. They're the most fiercely competitive, companies in their own space, but they will argue to get that pie established, and then they'll go and fight over it, and that's the order of the process.
Bringing you, Howard, in, so there's going to be some casualties. Some independents aren't going to come along with the ride. We've got an industry that's fragmented. Where do we go from here? What role do you see Retra playing in trying to bring the industry together? How can we bring these disparate sectors into one?
I think if we go back and look back to say 2008, 2009, and then look at, to a degree, where we are. So the people where it was a lifestyle business and it was all about the villas in Spain and the yacht and the big Jaguar and all the rest of it, they were some of the first casualties. And then some of the people that perhaps hadn't invested as much as they could have done in their business, they've fallen by the wayside. And it's maybe possible that we're bumping along the bottom here, because whilst I agree with a lot of what Paul said, there is an importance, particularly on that element of scale, that I know when these brands go back to Japan or go back to Korea or go back to Europe or Asia or wherever they report to, in order to secure investment of time and money and everything else that goes with it, they want to know what the size of the opportunity is in the independent sector. And with the best will in the world, if you're going in there and you're saying, well, actually, we could get a good share of 9% of the market here. Sure. So I think it's very much it's in the interest of everybody in this room to actually fight the corner for the independents that are worth fighting for. Yeah. And I say that in the knowledge that sadly they're not all worth fighting for, because some of them with whatever support you give them probably won't make the right decisions or won't be in a position to put the resources behind it or whatever. But I think it beholds all of us, because there's an awful lot of heritage there. And you could say, well, okay, you're just looking back, Howard. Yes, I am looking back. And a lot of the brands in here established themselves in the independent sector, grew their brand, then went for volume, went down other routes, and understandably so, because, at the end of the day, you have to provide volume and share and profit and all the rest of it, because it makes the business tick. But equally, having established yourself in the independents, don't turn your back on them, because actually you never know when you might need them again. Because some of the big guys actually aren't very good at introducing new technology. And that's where the independent, has that special relationship with the consumer. That's why I'm convinced that the smart home is where the independent can kick back. Because it's all about trust, really. I need somebody that's actually going to come in my home and tell me or explain to me, what do you want in this room, Howard? What do you want in that room? And how would that work? And what do I need to buy to do that? And what do I need to invest in? And I've got to trust somebody to walk through my door. And I'm more likely to trust a local business that may have been established for 20, 30, 40, 80 years in some cases, than some Johnny-come-lately that I've never heard of. So, I've rambled on a bit, but essentially, this is the opportunity. This is Seb James's £1 billion opportunity. Globally, it's probably $35 billion or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the independent doesn't ride this wave, because you talked about some of the waves they've missed, and there's many others, if they don't ride this wave, then I'm very fearful.
Dan, you write for ERT regularly, and you talk a lot about the technology, the wave, the next thing. What do you see it going? What's the role of the independent in the next riding the next wave?
The smart home is ultimately going to be the next big thing. If you think about, you mentioned earlier as well, the unlikelihood of independent retail perhaps stocking, an Gecko product. I don't think it's really that. You never know. everyone's got to look at a land grab here. And as each category becomes more and more competitive, and the smart home is already becoming that, and we're already seeing some brands pull out of the market. You know, they went in the market too soon, their proposition didn't speak very well. Yes, they went into Dixon's and Seb James, made lots of promises, but you know, there's still a massive opportunity out there in that particular sector, as there are, as you know, in the audio sector, where we're seeing that these two areas, the smart home and audio, combine to become one, as we want convenience and practicality within the home. We don't want lots of different systems, we don't want lots of different wires. You know, we want something that's clean and, you know, fits into our homes. And again, back to the point that you made earlier, it's this idea that, you know, brands, it's their brand's responsibility. It isn't. We can't always, you know, I sit in a lot of meetings with brands, we talk to a lot of brands about what their roadmap is and the potential, and, you know, 9% market share is fantastic, but collectively we have to take a responsibility on how we grow that, and it's not the responsibility purely of the brand of how they grow that. It's everyone needs to work together to do that.
Stuart, you're one of the wave makers, aren't you? You're providing the waves that we have to surf on. So what do you see? What's next?
Yeah, I mean, I want to pull it back, if I may, to real life, because you can get a lot of talk about global stuff and positions and things like that, and the reality is this £1 billion industry is already here. There is £1 billion being done in the UK by about 1,200 custom installers. They are doing installations now on systems that already exist. It's not waiting for brands to do anything. They're out there adding value in a way that you can't buy online, and that is taking products, putting them together in a tried and tested way, and making it easy for the consumer to control them. And this is using brands you already deal with in stock. It's gluing them together with some clever stuff like URC control, Q-motion blinds and stuff that we do as it happens. So you need to get the knowledge, add some additional product line, which you don't have to stock, so you're not increasing your stock holding, because companies like AWE and other brands are available, just not as good. You can, saw somebody else said that, but basically there are things you can do right now. The industry is already there. Hughes, Avensis are already doing it from a retail point of view. Again, there are others that have been on the stage here showing you real life. So please don't wait for a manufacturer or a brand or a standard or anything else. The potential is there now. The business is already being done. What you need to do, if I may, and I do apologise if I'm coming across a bit presumptuous, but if you feel you need to do something other than pure retail or what you're doing now, then please, as the business owners, take the steps, scope it out and have a proper look. Come down and visit us or someone like us, investigate CEDIA training, AWE Smart Home training, put some people on it, invest the time and money and work out if that's right for your business.
Paul, we've talked before about sort of alternative business models, new business models. Andrew Gibbs talked about it earlier. He talked about his sons, his millennials. I know you've talked about business models before. You know, return to rentals. Robert Hughes talking earlier about rentals. You know, is it worth going for the younger consumer? Is that one of the options we look at in the future?
Well, ultimately, if you don't, your business is dead because your current consumers will die. Yeah. Okay, they're all living longer, so the tail is growing. But I mean, I think Andy referred to it. Youngsters still use retail. I mean, you know, you've only got to go to Westfields in Shepherd's Bush or Westfields in East London on a Saturday or Sunday to see that is not a place full of 40 pluses. No. You know, there is some presumption that those under 30 don't use retail. Well, you know, if you think that, or you know people that think that, get them to go to those sort of places on a weekend, and they will absolutely see and get an idea of what certain retail environments are doing to drag those people in. And it's just that consumer electronics has probably not focused on that area. Some people in the mobile space have tried, because obviously a smartphone is typically a product that pretty much everyone between 12 and 25 owns, I mean, plus older people. So there is clearly an opportunity, but you've got to differentiate your offering. That they're not interested in probably washing machines or large screen TVs, because actually they live in a single room or shared accommodation or with their family. So you've got to consider the proposition, but there's no doubt that they still like retail theatre, they still like a social experience. And as Robert Hughes mentioned earlier, these people, or that generation, are probably less inclined to consider the value of assets. They're more likely to consider it as a burden. So and again, a lot of people shy away from rental. It's an old model. It's a 70s model.
It's a bit of a dirty word in some respects.
Yeah, but the modern models, and the majority of people have their smartphone on a contract model. You don't own the product effectively. You have an all-service contract of which a hardware is provided as the gateway. There's no reason why you can't do it on other services. And we know, as I say, as Robert Hughes said in their business model, that there are those that have found ways to take advantage of that. So I think, let's be honest, if you're just selling boxes in any environment, whether you're selling boxes of cornflakes or boxes of TVs, that is not a sustainable business model for even the biggest organisations, never mind the small. And we've heard a lot today about localisation, personalisation and full service delivery. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's not, but we've had people up here on stage today that are giving examples where it can work and where they're getting a profitable business model for it. And I guess the challenge, because certainly I also don't believe manufacturers should be prescriptive to how you as retailers run your business. I don't think that works. Your strength is the personalisation and localisation. So you really have to decide as individuals how you take those other elements and build that into a business model mix. And people won't survive that don't do that.
Great.
And also, how do we encourage them as an industry to keep this critical mass that Howard referred to?
Conscious that we've had a long day and it's getting very hot up here. But we've got time for a few questions, so I'd like to open it up to the floor if anyone's got any questions. I'm sure Andy will have a question. Andy Davis.
I have, as a matter of fact.
Funny that. Yeah.
It's half a statement and half a question, really, but I'm wondering if one of the things that's lacking is a kind of entrepreneurial approach in this industry. Is that the existing retailers don't seem to have an entrepreneurial streak about them, and likewise they're not attracting new entrepreneurs into this sector to kind of mix it up a bit. It's been done the same way for too long by the same people, and I'm wondering whether is there a way that we can tackle that to attract new points of view into an industry rather than trying to get existing people to do new things.
Dan?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've got to remember in that we're working in an industry where it is a considered purchase. We're asking people to spend, a big proportion of their weekly, monthly salary on a particular product. So, we know statistically 74% of people want to come into a store and actually touch and experience it, whether it be from opening that fridge door to actually seeing the picture quality or hearing the sound quality of whatever it is that they want to buy, that audio equipment. These are truly considered purchases, and therefore what you've got to do is commercially you've got to be a bit more astute about the manner in which you speak to that customer. And I think you're right in that perhaps it's not this assumption that it's a distressed purchase and therefore they're just going to walk out and buy anything because they're desperate for it. You've got to be a little bit more entrepreneurial in the way in which you engage with that consumer to, ultimately sell them the product and feel that they don't walk out with any buyer's remorse. They've bought the brand that they want, that speaks to that does what they wanted to do or what they originally wanted it to do, and perhaps walk out with a little bit more as well. It's about the attached sale. It's about what else you can sell to the consumer as part of that customer journey. They may not buy it there and then, but hopefully they have had such a great experience in buying that product with you the first time round, they'll come in and buy that attachment, that extra speaker, whatever it may be, that boost to go with that Sonos system. It's about how we kind of bring that all together and make it more of a shopping experience that rewards the consumer. Yes, they're paying you, but you want to reward them back with a really pleasant experience and go home and really enjoy the product that they put in their living room, their kitchen, wherever it may be.
Does anyone else want to comment on Stuart?
Yeah, I was just going to say in terms of the entrepreneurial, it's entrepreneurial in terms of for those that are up for it, you have to change. So whether that's entrepreneurial in terms of the true sense of the word on a sort of a national scale, or actually just getting down to it, recognising that if you want to raise your average sale price and make more margin on every sale, you need to take the best of all the bits you've heard in terms of entertaining and doing the best retail experience that you can. But when that person walks in, if they're talking about the price in John Lewis or any other store, they're in your store. So my recommendation would be, okay, if you have to match that price, match it, but offer something that they can't buy online or get in John Lewis and charge more for it. And that's where your margin comes from. That's where your profits will increase, and then you can reinvest in your own websites and things. So if you become more relevant to your customers, guarantee the manufacturers will be flocking around trying to give you all sorts of demo deals and discounts to get stuff in, because you're leading the way. And I do think it is a joint thing here. For me, one of the biggest frustrations in the CI industry is the online pricing of mainstream electronics. And I have to say, it's a lot of independents that are in that, because it's this vicious cycle, isn't it? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but it's this vicious cycle of online's important, we must compete, therefore the price goes down. It's hugely frustrating because that's your margin that's being given away. The only way of getting out of that cycle is to offer something in store, in your community, that you can't buy online.
Conscious of time, any more final comments? Anyone? Anything else you want to say, Paul?
I mean, I think we've seen, well, from my observation, I think all the people representing Channel today on stage have shown entrepreneurial skill. And again, Griff referred to there is a skill shortage in the industry in general. So again, it comes back to this. We do need to bring fresh blood into the industry at all levels, including Channel. And I think one of our challenges is how, as an industry, we promote the opportunity, not just in the software coding and services where talent is going into, the Googles and Facebooks of this world, but also into channels, into the direct customer relationship part. And we need fresh blood because not everyone in the industry will be able to change. That's a fact. And I think we have to work together to try and attract that fresh blood into the industry.
I think that's the challenge, really.
Fresh blood.
With the independent, at the end of the day, as people retire, or there's not the same second, third generation. I know we've had examples of it today, but a lot of second, third generation are not interested in taking over the family business or running the family business. And I think, taking Andy's point, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to invest your money in something. You're going to look for what return will I get on that investment. And at the moment, retailing electrical products, unless you're very good at it, the return is shit, quite frankly.
Well, on that note,
Thank you, yes.
So
Yeah.
essentially,
Brilliant.
we have to make the industry attractive to entrepreneurs. And the way we do that is by actually showing them that they'll get a return on their investment, they'll make a good living, and taking Steve Scolging's point, they might have a bit of fun as well, because we used to have fun in this industry, didn't we?
God, it's like being in a hospital, fresh blood and shit. I don't know where we're going now. Well, brilliant. I'd like to say thanks to our panellists, and thanks to Saycell for Retra. Give a big hand for the panellists. Dan Todaro from Gecko, Stuart Tickle from AWE, and Paul Hyde from techUK. Bill, it's been a long day. I'd like to also thank everyone who's taken time out of their business to come and attend today. I'd also like to thank techUK for letting us use their venue, all our event partners, all our event sponsors, all the panellists, and all the speakers, and all my team at Taylist as well for helping organise.
Sean's been on stage for over 5 hours today, so I think we should give it a
Thank you.
Sure. Is it time for Born to Run now?
Yeah.